The cold, dark night air brushes against your face as you silently and sneakily crawl through the window of the Weasley shop. You land on the floor with a soft thud. The shop is quiet and eerily empty at this late hour. The only sound is the soft creaking of the floorboards under your footsteps as you move forward. The dim moonlight filters in through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. You slowly and silently take out your wand from your pocket. You mutter the incantation Lumos softly under your breath, and the tip of your wand glows, casting a soft light in the room. The light from your wand illuminates the area around you, revealing some of the items in the shop. Your heart thuds in your chest as you tiptoe through the dimly lit shop, wand light flickering across shelves of prank supplies, whoopee cushions, fanged frisbees, boxes labelled "Do not open seriously," but you're not here for toys. You slip past a curtain made of old cauldrons and find yourself in the back room, the real workshop. Rows of bubbling potions hum softly under glass domes. Strange gadgets whir on workbenches, floating teacups that scream when touched, self-setting shoelaces that bite ankles. And there it is. On a pedestal behind an iron gate with glowing runes along its frame, a small silver case about the size of your palm. The air around it shimmers slightly, like magic itself is holding its breath. The prototype. Fred and George have been working on this all year, their most dangerous creation yet. The Midnight Marauder. A device said to turn invisible not just objects, but people, permanently, if used wrong. Your heart pounds in your chest as your hand clenches tightly around your wand. Your true purpose revealed. You are here to steal the prototype, not for your own gain, but for the one wizard who you served above all else, Lord Voldemort. The very thought makes you feel both exhilarated and terrified. You knew stealing from Fred and George was a treacherous act, not only because they were your friends, but because they were also two of the most brilliant wizards you knew. Yet you knew the great Lord Voldemort would reward you handsomely after you delivered the Midnight Marauder into his hands. As your trembling hand reaches out to grab the prototype, a sudden sharp gasp of excitement freezes in your throat. A large hand abruptly covers your mouth, silencing you, and an arm wraps around your middle from behind, pulling you into the shadows of the room. Darkness blinds you, swallowing your surroundings. Your heart races like a runaway dragon, adrenaline pumping through your veins. As the room remains dimly cloaked in shadows, you feel a strong grip guiding you onto a hard wooden chair, your heart thumping wildly in your chest. Just as your vision adjusts to the limited light, the soft glow of a magically lit candle fills the room, illuminating the faces of Fred and George as they stand before you, their arms folded across their chests. Fred, she tried to steal it. Fred steps closer, the candlelight flickering across his face as he crouches in front of you. His green eyes bore into yours, playful no longer, just cold calculation. Your breath hitches as Fred slowly reaches into his pocket and pulls out something small, metallic and familiar. Another prototype. A twin of the one you were trying to steal. He tosses it once in his hand before tucking it back away with a smirk that doesn't reach his eyes this time. "Tell us," Fred says softly now, tilting your finger under your jawline so there's no way for you not meet their gaze anymore. "Who sent you?" Fred lets out a low, disbelieving chuckle while George slowly circles behind you like a predator, his footsteps eerily silent. "Come now," Fred says, voice smooth but edged with danger. "You don't just casually decide to break into our shop at midnight and steal one of the most heavily guarded prototypes in magical history." He leans closer until his face is inches from yours. "No one sends someone for this unless they're desperate or powerful." George stops behind your chair, resting both hands on its backrest, one brushing near your shoulder as he speaks directly into your ear. "So let's try again. Who do you work for?" A heavy silence fills the room as Fred and George exchange a quick, sharp glance, a silent conversation passing between them that you can't quite decipher. George's grip tightens a fraction on the chair as he leans down, his voice a dangerous hiss near your ear. Say that again. George's smirk turns victorious as he nods slowly at Fred, his face inches from yours. Looks like you owe me. He chuckles softly, looking up at his twin with a smug expression. I told you this one's a Death Eater. Fred runs a hand through his red hair, looking almost annoyed as he mutters, Yeah, all right, already, but can you honestly blame me? I thought she had more integrity than that. Fred raises an eyebrow, a dangerous glint in his eye as he steps closer. Oh, excuse you. You break into our shop, try to steal one of our most classified prototypes, for the Dark Lord no less, and now you're getting offended at being called out? George lets out a low laugh behind your ear. Darling, if anything, that's us who should be saying excuse me. He gently taps your shoulder with 2 fingers before adding, for catching you. Fred lets out a soft scoff, his expression still hard. You think an apology will fix this mess? George, though, softens slightly, his hand moving to gently rest on your shoulder. An apology is a start, he admits, though his grip remains firm, a reminder of the predicament you're in. But it doesn't erase what you did, what you were going to do. Fred laughs at that, a bitter, disbelieving sound. What do we want, he repeats, his voice rising in anger. How about you not trying to hand the most dangerous, magical device in existence over to the man who's actively killing people? George gives your shoulder a gentle squeeze, as if to temper his twin's outburst. What we want, he interjects, his voice calmer, is for you to understand the gravity of what you were about to do. Fred lets out a sharp, incredulous laugh. A generous sum? He looks at George like the very idea is ridiculous. George's fingers dig into your shoulder slightly as he leans in closer, his voice low and dangerously amused. Oh, so this was about money. You were going to sell our prototype, something we've been working on for months, to the Dark Lord for gold? Fred smirks darkly now too. Darling, he purrs mockingly, stepping even closer until his face is inches from yours again. We're Weasleys, and then both twins say it together with terrifying cheerfulness. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Fred lets out another scoff, his eyes hardening. Oh, you'll sell it? He spits the words like a curse. And give us a portion of the gold? His voice is thick with anger now as he adds, you must actually think we're idiots. George's grip on your shoulder tightens impossibly as he too responds. We built that prototype, not to mention the countless weeks, months even, put into researching and crafting it. And you just expect us to take a cut? Fred and George exchange another incredulous glance before bursting out into almost mad laughter, the sound bouncing eerily off the walls. Name our price, George gasps between guffaws, looking down at you with a mocking smile. You want us to name the price for the thing we made? Fred finally manages to collect himself, his face still slightly flushed from the laughter. How much was Lord Voldemort offering then, if you're so keen on selling? The laughter instantly dies in their throats, replaced by stunned silence. Fred and George look at you, expressions of disbelief etched across their faces. 500,000? George repeats. Fred looks slightly impressed in spite of himself, raising an eyebrow. That's quite the number, he says evenly. Didn't know the Dark Lord had that kind of cash to throw around for prototypes. Fred and George exchange another glance, this time something more calculating in their expressions. George lets out a low whistle. 500,000. He mutters under his breath before looking back at you with narrowed eyes. Well, Fred says slowly, crossing his arms over his chest as he leans slightly forward. That is tempting. Fred lets out a soft scoff, amused by your audacity. Half of it, huh? He muses, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. That's awfully generous of you. George raises an eyebrow skeptically, his expression more guarded. And how do we know you're not just messing with us? You just tried to steal the damn thing. Fred lets out a dry chuckle. Oh, so that's the game. He tilts his head slightly, studying you with amusement. You didn't trust us to give it up willingly, so you just went for plan B. Stealing? George sighs dramatically and rolls his eyes before adding, well, now that we've established your lack of faith in our negotiation skills, what exactly is your plan C then? Fred folds his arms with a smirk, raising an eyebrow at your question. Tricking the Dark Lord, He chuckles dryly before saying, you didn't seem keen on tricking him a few moments ago when you were about to hand over the real one. He shakes his head. George steps up alongside him, still twirling that silver case between his fingers. Sounds like someone's not quite sure who they're loyal to anymore, he adds with a sly smile. Both Fred and George exchange a glance, their expressions suddenly more serious. We might have something, Fred says slowly, his eyes narrowing slightly as he considers something. George looks at you carefully as he continues, but it's risky, really risky. Both twins laugh loudly at the idea, shaking their heads in disbelief. Killing the Dark Lord? Fred lets out a sarcastic scoff. George adds, if we could do that, we wouldn't be talking to you, sweetheart. They exchange another glance, more serious now. No, Fred says finally, his voice lower. We have something more subtle in mind. George's smirk widens as he leans in slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We do have something, but it's not for killing. He pulls out a small vial of swirling violet liquid from his pocket, the contents glowing faintly even in the dim light. Fred chimes in with a grin. Ever heard of floating faux twitch? You blink at him blankly. George rolls his eyes. Ugh, Fred, you always ruin it. He turns back to you with dramatic flair. This, he says solemnly while holding up the vial like some cursed artifact, which, honestly, it might be, is one hell of an illusion potion. Fred nods eagerly now too before adding, one drop makes your victim think they're being haunted by their own shadow for 24 hours straight. His grin sharpens into something wicked here as both twins look between themselves again, their expressions shifting subtly toward mischief instead fear. Then George adds softly, imagine Voldemort spending an entire day screaming at nothing because some fake version himself keeps telling him how pathetic he is. They wait expectantly after this offer, clearly hoping you'll take bait, a long path lined entirely made from chaos and spite. Fred and George gasp in mock offense, clutching their chests dramatically. Horrible? Fred repeats with a smirk. No, this is art. This is the kind of prank that would go down in Hogwarts legend. George nods eagerly, his eyes gleaming mischievously as he adds, picture it, Lord Voldemort standing there like some twitchy maniac while his own shadow calls him names. He lets out an actual giggle at the thought. They both stare at you expectantly now, their expressions shifting subtly between amusement and something almost hopeful. You're telling me, George says slowly, you wouldn't pay good gold to see that? George stops twirling the empty case and steps closer, kneeling down slightly to meet your eyes directly. His expression is suddenly more serious, though there's still a hint of mischief in the corner of his mouth. Or, he says slowly, his voice lower, almost conspiratorial. He holds up the vial of violet liquid, swishing it ever so slightly so that the glowing substance inside casts a faint beam of light across your face. Maybe, he continues, you give Voldemort this. It'll make him turn invisible for like 10 minutes. George continues to stare intently as he adds, it's a fake, but you just got to let him take it right before he tries something stupid, like entering Hogwarts. His eyes narrow as he considers this plan. Maybe give Dumbledore a little heads up about your plan too, and that Harry Potter fella, he finishes, his voice just above a whisper. Silence hangs over the room as both twins stare at you expectantly. They look almost hopeful, though their expressions are still carefully guarded. Fred's smirk widens into a grin as he folds his arms over his chest, looking down at you with a sly gleam in his eyes. "I think we have a deal then," he repeats, his voice firm. George lets out a small scoff next to him before adding, "You get half the money and we get half. Fair's fair, right?" They both stand there for a moment, looking pleased with themselves. "Now, it's just for you to do your part, little thief," Fred says softly, his eyes narrowing slightly. Fred lets out another sly chuckle, his eyes still gleaming with mischief. "But don't think that we're done with you just yet." He starts slowly, his voice low and almost menacing. "You did try to steal from us,